Hello everybody, Raven Knight here, coming at you with a super awesome video that I've been really excited to talk to you guys about. Y'all have been asking for me to do this conversation for a while, but I never had the time and never really wanted to because I didn't think that the conversation was worth having. But today, after a big update from a good friend of mine, which we're going to get into, I think it's finally time we did a video dedicated to this, but I don't want to do it alone. I want to introduce my partner for this video, a very good friend of mine who I've known for a long time, who's drawn a bunch of pictures for the channel and for the Teespring store and planning to do more pictures in the future. Everyone say hello to Hannah. Hannah, why don't you say hello to the community?
Hey everyone, hope you're all doing well today.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming on, Hannah. We got a lot to talk about today. There's a lot to really go into. So what are we talking about? Ever since I revealed this image, this is Jay's original image of the Raven Lord, people have asked for what is the lore, what is the story, what is the background on this character. Really, when Jay drew this, he wasn't coming up with anything specific. We didn't really have a story in mind, but you know me, I'm a storyteller. I'm always coming up with stories. So eventually, I just started making a story around this, and people were asking me, what's the story? What's the lore? What is this? How does this function? And so I started planning something, but I wasn't going to do a video on it because honestly, I didn't have any ideas as of yet that I wanted to share. But Hannah, you and I have talked about this for a while, so I got two questions for you, Hannah. When you first saw this image from Jay, what did you think of it? How did you like it? What were your thoughts about this image?
So when I first saw it, I did think it was an interesting concept where the medieval and Japanese armor styles were kind of mixed. I wasn't a huge fan of the camo plate, but I kind of get the reason why he did it. As for like, if I were to design it, I probably would have a different process. Jay has his own process of how he goes about things, and I have my own. I probably would just ask you questions, honestly.
For sure. Now, I'm going to tell y'all and tell you, Hannah, because I think you know this, Hannah. I think I've told you, but I need to tell y'all. The reason Jay drew it this way is when I first approached Jay, I was trying to get like an avatar for my channel, somebody that could represent me. And he asked what I was looking for. I said, I like samurai and I like knights. Is there a way we can combine those two into one look? And this is what he came up with. And he definitely met that. I mean, Hannah, what do you think? Do you think that he met that?
I definitely do think that he did.
Yeah, for sure. The camo, though, I think we can all agree, it looks a little weird. He said that he wanted to do that because he wanted to combine a modern day aesthetic to it because he kind of wanted to make it look a little bit modern. But I won't deny it is a little odd right there, and I think Jay would even agree to that if he were here. But still, it was a great design, and I do like the design even to this day. It's still one of my favorites. I just haven't used it as much, and we'll get into why in a minute. But it was based on this image that we started coming up with new ideas for the Raven Lord's lore. Now, before I started coming up with the story, though, Hannah proposed a suggestion. As usual, Hannah, you do love to draw me as a female, and there is a reason. There are actually a couple reasons for that. We won't go into them here. We got more to talk about in this video than just that, but sometime maybe I'll get Hannah back on here and we'll talk about why she draws me as a girl so often. But she said, let's make a Raven Lord female version. And I said, okay, but the ball is in your court. How do you want to do it? And Hannah, why don't you tell us a little bit about what you were thinking when you offered to do this idea?
Honestly, it's like when I first heard about it, it was mostly because like most of your fans were asking us like, hey, let's see a female Raven. So I decided to take that idea and run with it. And I had to look at a lot of different styles, different references to just get the right style that I was looking for. And as you mentioned that, we even did a poll with your fans like, hey, which do you guys like? Because I felt like I wanted to kind of also help with bring the community a little bit more to kind of let them also decide like, hey, you know, it's up to you guys to decide what you want the style to be. And of course, so we came up with different styles. We came up with 4 different styles for the hairstyle, and we came up with 3 different styles for the armor. Honestly, like for me, I would personally say that I do like, for the hairstyle, I like 3 and 4. And then for the armor, I would probably have to say 2 and 3.
Right. What happened was, and I recall, I really wanted audience participation on this. So we did propose this poll where we asked people to kind of tell us their thoughts. I released it in an update video, and I wanted people to turn in their ideas. We had a huge vote through the whole thing. Lots in the comments, lots on Discord. It took a while to get all the votes together. But after we got all the votes together, we did get our final result. And this, what you're seeing right now, folks, is the image that Hannah came up with. And I love this image. It came out so cool. Instead of just doing the long sword, she added Sanhu's sword. She added a Chinese weapon there. I love the feathered kind of look there. It was really cool. So Hannah, just question here. When you were designing this specific outfit, what were you thinking? Like, what were you trying to go for? Like, was it kind of a raven thing, more of a knight thing, more of a Viking thing? Like, what were you kind of shooting for here?
I did want to also mix in with the Japanese and medieval armor style, but kind of give a bit more of a fantasy kind of feel to it. I know there was like some movies or shows that I saw that had like the cape itself looked like it was made out of feathers, and I kind of wanted to incorporate that. So the feathered cape is pretty much like my favorite part, honestly.
Yeah, a lot of people said that they liked that. So, just a question before we get into the Ravenlord lore. I do want to ask. Well, first I'll point this out. We talked about how the female Ravenlord could be embodied into the lore. Like maybe the Ravenlord himself suffers a magical accident where he turns into that, or maybe there's like a dual personality thing. If you were to incorporate the female Ravenlord into the story, how would you do it?
It'd probably be two ways. One would probably be that maybe perhaps it's his twin. Another one could be possibly maybe it's an alternate universe where the Ravenlord is instead a female.
No, there are lots of ways to do it for sure, and I think that those are good ways, but it's just a funny concept because you do like to draw me as a chick, so it kind of stands to reason. Oh, and she did do a chibi version recently. You can see the chibi here. Looking for a way to get that on a shirt or something for the Teespring store. Just let us know if you're interested. We'll definitely do that. But now on to the stuff you really want to talk about. Okay, so what happened is this. Later on down the line, I was talking to Jay about possibly doing some new merchandise for the store, and I showed him an image of my Lawbringer character. He liked it and drew it himself, but then he drew us another version where he put the Ravenlord's helmet on the Lawbringer, and that's the one you've seen in a lot of my videos. It's up on the screen right now. You can see it for yourself. And I loved it. A lot of people really, really loved this image. It was possibly the better one. Hannah, what did you think of this one? Did you prefer this one? What do you like about this one?
I do definitely think that it is definitely an upgrade. I do like it a lot more.
For sure, for sure. What do you like about it?
That it kind of it makes it feel like it's its own thing. Even though like the first one, I did like the first one, but it kind of just felt like it was. No offense to Jay, but it did feel like it was just a throw-in for Japanese and medieval. But with this one, it does make it feel like its actual own thing, its own armor that made it seem more believable.
And just curious, if this had been the first design that Jay did, would that change how you drew the female Ravenlord?
No. And the reason for that is because, Jay and I both have different interpretations on what the Ravenlord could look like. And it's cool to kind of see that different aspect. So no, I wouldn't change how she looked, honestly, just based on Jay's design.
And that's fair. That's totally fair. You both have a very distinct art style. Again, if you have not gone to see Hannah or Jay's work, I will post both of their Instagrams in the description so you can go check it out. Now, on to the part that y'all want to hear. What is the story? Like, what is the Ravenlord lore? I've been talking about these designs a lot. Hannah's given her thoughts on the designs and what she did to help create them. So now, what's the actual lore? Okay, so here we go. First of all, I want to say that I got a lot of inspiration from games like Dragon Age Inquisition and Warhammer Fantasy. What I set up was that the realm of the Ravenlord is this land called Edenvale. Edenvale is a fantasy-style world, but for a long time it was inhabited by humans. There is an alternate dimension blocked by an invisible barrier, much like the Fade in Dragon Age Inquisition. And behind this veil is what they call the Ethereum. It's like an alternate universe that is a pale reflection of our world, kind of like the Warp in Warhammer. And behind it are swirling energies of magic and power, aggression, all that kind of stuff. And there are entities that dwell within, spirits, ghosts, demons, that kind of thing. Again, very much like the Warp. Now, one day, hundreds of years ago, there was a great event where there was a hole ripped through it, kind of like in the game Witcher, the conjunction of the spheres. Through this hole, through this brief merging of the physical world and the Ethereum, powerful energies flowed into Edenvale. These energies mutated some of the human population into the kind of fantasy races and monsters that you read about in Dungeons and Dragons. You got centaurs from it, you got elves from it, you got mermaids from it, you got all these different races. It was mass pandemonium, and it lasted for almost a week. Then it went away, and hundreds of years later, people have almost forgotten about it, to the point that a lot of these races do not remember they used to be human. Now, this is where the Raven Lord first makes his entrance. At the time, he's just a young duke, a young noble's son. And he doesn't understand why humans and other races don't get along. But because these other races forgot they were human, there's become animosity between the human people and the non-humans, who they call, well, non-humans. And he doesn't understand why there has to be animosity. He doesn't get it. But he understands that it's existed for a long time. Well, one day he goes out to the town and he sees a nobleman beating the hell out of a non-human. And he pulls a Moses and runs over and kills the noble while he's doing it. Now, here's the problem. He just killed a noble. It doesn't matter his reasons. He just killed a noble. That means his family's going to be shamed. He could be executed and imprisoned, one of the two. And so he decides, you know what, I better get out of here. So he better get out of Dodge. So he runs away, runs into the wilds. While he's wandering the wilds, he discovers this sage, and the sage reveals to him that he could have the potential to reclaim his homeland and create the peace between non-humans and humans that he's always wanted. The problem is, no one's going to bow to him unless he demonstrates real power. And he says, oh, and you can give it to me? Actually, she can. She teaches him that one of the ancient secrets about the Ethereum is that you can control magic and sorcery by controlling its energy and waves and power. The problem is only a select few are capable. Those are your sorcerers, witches, and mages, that kind of thing. And he starts learning under her, and he does really well. He picks up on the skills pretty quickly. He picks up on combat techniques. He picks up on how to cast basic spells and stuff like that. But she says that there's a step further you could go. There is an ancient ability that only a select few sorcerers have ever been able to figure out, called the Yatagoras. It is a third eye. It is an eye, usually in the middle of the forehead, that allows you to see into the Ethereum, peer past the veil and see the energies behind the veil. And thus you can understand more what you're seeing and control it even better, have more concentrated control of it, able to control shadows, able to control darkness, able to shoot massive blasts of energy, fire, light, lightning. It is incredible power in the palm of your hands because you are able to see the energies themselves. The downside is it costs a tremendous amount of energy to do this. Most people try to cheat by sacrificing one of their eyes and replacing it with the Yatagara so that there's no sacrifice. But most who try to do it the right way will have it in the middle of their forehead. And the more they use that eye, the more it drains them to the point that it could potentially kill them. The Raven Lord decides to go through the trials and training, and he discovers how to access the eye. And he decides, you know what, to make sure that I don't abuse this, I'm going to tie a bandana around my head so that it can cover up the eye, and I'm not tempted to keep using this all the time. I want to use this as little as possible. So after he finishes up his training, he's a young man now. He's ready to start his quest to regain his throne and bring unity back to all of Edenvale. But when he returns, he discovers that things aren't how he left it. One really strong sorcerer has risen up. I haven't given this guy a name yet. He's the villain of the entire lore. Think of him almost like the Skeletor or the Dr. Evil of the world. He's the one, if something bad happens, odds are pretty good he had some kind of connection to it. If he didn't ordain it, he's not against it either, that kind of thing.
Yeah, as long as you don't give him the name Keith.
And Keith, darn it, change your name, please. That's not scary, and I'm embarrassed to say it.
No, I'm not going to name him Keith. Oh, God, look out for Keith. I got to give him a good name. That's not going to be it. But anyway, back to what I was saying. So let's call him Keith for now, just because we don't have a name.
Oh, watch out for Keith.
So Keith is plotting his takeover of Edenvale himself because Keith believes that the conjunction, that moment where the Ethereum met the mortal world, that was meant to be. That was the way it was supposed to be. And so he wants to bring it back. He wants to set that up again. That's his ultimate goal. He wants to create a world where the Ethereum and the mortal world are unified. Kind of like what Solus wanted in Dragon Age, where he wanted the Fade to meet with the mortal world. That's kind of the same thing. And it turns out that Keith has the Yatagoras as well, only he cut out his eye to make it happen. So Keith is very powerful, very dangerous, and he has a lot of allies that are working with him, both human and non-human. So now we realize that, the Raven Lord, he needs some help. He's going to need some assistance in getting what he wants. So he decides to seek out some assistance from other non-human clans or groups or military, stuff like that. He meets a few allies along the way, one of whom is a young warlock named Lark. That's where Lark comes into the picture. He gets his own character in this, who becomes a very close advisor and friend to the Raven Lord. No, I didn't make him my official brother in this. That would be kind of silly, wouldn't it? So I made him his own character with his own story, and maybe sometime Lark can get on here and talk about what he wanted to add, but he's not available tonight, sadly. But then, and Hannah, you haven't added your own character yet, but what if you could add your own character to this story, what kind of character would you add if you could add yourself to this world?
I know that was something that's always been in the process. Right now, it's like I'm still kind of thinking about like what to really do with the character. There's probably a few questions that we probably have to ask you to make sure that this character fits well with the world itself, as well as their backstory. But probably like once I get it all finalized, it'll probably be something I will present later on.
For sure, and I'll definitely get with you on that once we know more about that and we know what we want to do there. But that's still in the works, guys. And Jay has added his own character named Callus, who you are seeing on the screen right now. He's kind of a warrior character, a friend of the Raven Lord. So we've been adding characters based on my friends and close contacts. But here's where things changed. Even though I was adding these characters and sort of creating this thing, I wasn't really seeing anywhere this could go. I kind of just left it on the back burner, kind of a fun thing in the background. But then Hannah approached me. Hannah, why don't you tell me how this all started? Like, what did you approach me with? For
your Raven Lord story, or for the
smogest thing, like just.
Oh, so last month, if some of you might know, was Smogest month. And what that means is that most artists would create or design dragons based on a list that they had. I was watching a YouTuber that would design dragons based on pastries and bakery goods, which, by the way, they turned out absolutely amazing. And in the back of my head, I'm thinking, that'd probably be something that me and Raven could do, and it would probably be really fun. So I approached Raven about this idea, and I was like, hey, why don't we just design a dragon character and you can just make a story based on it? And that kind of opened the door with other things.
Yes, and I wasn't really sure what to do with that, like it's cool, like we could design our own dragon, but we were kind of at a stuck road, like what could we do that's unique? And I said it as a joke at first. I was kind of like, what if we made a dragon empress who the Raven Lord married? And I laughed about it, but Hannah said, okay. And I was like, oh, wait, really? So we got to thinking about how we would do this. And we'll tell you the story in just a second, but I wanted to tell you that when I asked Hannah to help me design this, we worked very, very closely on this. We designed the name, we designed the look, we designed the type of dragon she would be, human form, dragon form, personality. You were very strict on the personality too. You always are, like when you're doing like pictures, like you really want to know their personality and their characteristics. Why is that, Hannah?
Well, with their personality, I'm able to kind of get a better idea of how they would wear their clothing, what kind of stance they would have, how they would approach someone, how they would present themselves. To me, that kind of gives a better idea of how the character is going to look. Like, for example, if you had someone who was very outgoing, you wouldn't design them as someone who was like had very baggy clothing, had their hair in front of their eyes, because that kind of look doesn't really give off a person who's very outgoing and very outspoken.
Agreed. And I think that we've left them in suspense long enough. So let's go ahead and show them. This is the Dragon Queen, the Dragon Empress. Her name is Fey Lynn. As you can probably tell, kind of an Eastern theme to her. I'll tell you what the story was for her, and then Hannah, you can talk about what motivated you and what inspired you in designing her. So here's the story. Basically, while the Raven Lord is looking for allies, he remembers that there's a dragon clan that lives in the mountains. The dragons have come to the aid of humans in times of need, but this isn't really a time of need. It's more of a desire to claim power, and he's worried the dragons won't help him in that kind of pursuit. So he goes to the dragon clans and finds out that their queen, the Empress, is dying. Now, all dragons look kind of like Skyrim dragons, Western-style drakes, except dragon queens, dragon empresses, they can take human form, they can speak in the human tongue, they are different from other dragons. Well, she's suffering from some kind of illness that isn't normal, and the Raven Lord suspects it might have to do with the Ethereum. It might be Keith's attempt to keep the dragons out of the war. So he goes to her, sees what she's suffering from, uses his Yatagharas to identify what's happening, and then cures her, thankfully. It wears him out a little bit, but he does it, and she is very grateful and agrees to help him retake his castle. They work together, start a big military campaign for the castle, and take it back. Now the Raven Lord has a foothold in his own domain again. The war can now begin in earnest because now the Raven Lord has a stronghold, he has a fortress, he has a castle, and he's starting to take back control of Edenvale. Meanwhile, Fey Lynn, the Dragon Empress, she is starting to get a little smitten with the Raven Lord. She is enjoying being around him. She finds him fascinating and unique. And eventually, the Raven Lord, kind of getting the hints, decides that he's going to pursue that and ask her to marry him, which she agrees to. And so that's how that kind of started. And I really, really love the design that Hannah came up with. Hannah, tell us about what kind of inspired you. What got you to design her this way?
So when we first brought the idea of Fey Lynn, I remember there was one thing you had mentioned in Warhammer Fantasy where, and I might have this wrong, but I think they were called the Jade Children. They were able to transform into dragons. And I remember the culture was something that was very much inspired by Chinese. And I remember that depending on which culture, either like the Western culture, dragons were seen as evil creatures who were very greedy and destructive. While as over in Eastern culture, dragons were seen as deities and very well respected, and some even believing to be to bring good omen. So I kind of wanted to bring the Asian kind of culture design to her.
For sure, and I think it came out really good. I love the white hair and brown eyes kind of thing, or golden eyes kind of thing. What was the inspiration behind that?
So for that, originally, we thought about going albino with blue eyes, but I realized that was kind of overdone. So instead, I wanted to go with a different direction. I wanted to go with more of a kind of close to white, but more of like a platinum blonde hair with a orangish kind of eyes. But with the colors themselves, I wanted to go with autumn colors, both because like I like the season of autumn. It's one of my absolute most favorite seasons, and honestly, I wish it lasted longer. But I also included the color blue because I felt that was a good contrast to the already warm colors that we already had placed into the character.
Right, and then there's her outfit. I love the outfit. Actually, what I find interesting about it is even though the Raven Lord takes place in a fantasy world, this outfit reminds me a bit of like characters like Integra Helsing, very professional, very, stylish, but it looks a little pre-modern, but not medieval. So what was your idea behind that?
In that case, since you mentioned that this was take place in a fantasy world, since this is basically our own made-up world, I kind of wanted to take creative liberty on designing something that you wouldn't see in any other fantasy world. A lot of inspirations pretty much be like, for instance, Final Fantasy. Some of the time, Final Fantasy takes place in a medieval fantasy world, but their styles would be something you wouldn't really see in medieval time. I know I definitely did not want to put her in a dress, most because she was someone who would be considered very outgoing, so a dress would probably be something that would probably keep her down. She wouldn't be able to move around very quickly and whatnot, and a dress wouldn't really fit the bill for that.
Oh, I agree with that, actually. I actually love this. I also like the pipe you added. What was the idea behind the pipe? What made you want to do that?
I just thought it'd make her look cool.
It does, though. I really, really like it. So, last question I'll ask about her, then we'll move on. What kind of personality do you see her having with this outfit and with how she acts around the Raven Lord? How do you see her personality? Like, how do you think her relationship is with the Raven Lord?
originally we kind of joked about her relationship with the Raven Lord to be something very similar to the Warden from the anime Non-Baka.
Supervising Officer of Building 13, Hajime Sugoroku.
He's so cool, and he said my last name.
And we joked about that. And while I would like that, I know that the difference between Non-Baka and this is Non-Baka is considered a comedy. So I know we wouldn't be able to push it like that to go a little too far. But all in all, I would kind of like their relationship to be something that's very believable, because I know like they'll probably have their ups and downs and stuff, but it's something that you probably would want to strive for or would want to see in a relationship. As for her personality, if I'm having to be completely honest, I kind of probably considered something close to the character Coco from Jormungand, which some of you who haven't seen Jormungand, if you liked Black Lagoon, you'll like Jormungand. The character in that show was someone who was a very fun character. She had her goofy moments and whatnot, but when it got very serious, she was willing to kick ass and was willing to get like a one-up on her opponent.
First in the sky, then at sea, and then finally on the land. It will give us complete control over worldwide distribution networks. And with this power, the world will know peace, and they will owe it all to me.
So you see her as a serious character in terms of like combat and approaching her problems, almost like I kind of saw her as an Integra Helsing kind of character in normal circumstances. Like she takes things very seriously. She demands respect with her mere presence, like the way she dresses, the way she carries herself. She expects you to respect her.
Why on earth would a cheap bureaucrat like yourself know anything on the matter? How dare you even question my credentials? The Helsing organization has been defending the British Empire from such monsters for generations.
But around Ravenlord, like, do you think she acts any differently around him, considering that she kind of became smitten with him?
I would probably have to say I would probably see her more as someone who is very playful with Ravenlord.
When you say playful, do you mean like she teases him or she gets a little flustered around him? Or maybe both?
It'd probably be a little bit of both. But it's like, I would be really cool to see like when she does teases him and then he like follows up with that teasing and she just gets very blushy, like, oh my God, she's actually like following through on this. Oh my God, what do I do now?
Yeah, I kind of saw that too. Actually, funny thing, when I initially thought of this, I was thinking a lot about Boa Hancock and Monkey D. Luffy's relationship from One Piece, where you have the pirate empress, the pirate queen, who's, you know, she's so beautiful that every man and even woman in the world loves her just looking at her and would do anything for her. And she doesn't give a crap. But then you got Luffy, this kid who just does not respond, like is just kind of aloof about it. And she just falls all over herself for this guy, like a schoolgirl with a crush.
Luffy, I'm so glad that you're back to your old self. Charming, confident, and carefree. Just seeing your face has put my heart aflutter. I'm weak in the knees. My goodness, I could almost die.
But we both agreed that wasn't what we wanted to do here, because Luffy is not a good husband to Boa, because they're not married. But in this case, they are married, and the Raven Lord was the one who asked for marriage, so he would not be so aloof as Luffy. So definitely a difference there. But I really like how that came out. So thank you so much for drawing this, by the way. The art is awesome. It is absolutely beautiful. We're probably going to put that on a shirt or something. I'm still figuring out how I want to do that. We'll probably put all the Raven Lord characters on some kind of shirt, because like I said, this has been a lot of fun. So now you're probably wondering, okay, so what else is there to the lore? Well, that's kind of the point, guys. It's very open after that point. After the Ravenlord retakes his castle and marries Fey Lynn, now the world is kind of open. It's kind of like, you know, Warhammer or Skyrim or something like that. The world kind of becomes your own to run through and create your own story and stuff like that. I've had a few friends of mine offer their own story ideas or insert their own characters into the world to kind of run their own adventures. There's a lot of opportunity here. It's a very unique concept that I wanted to run with. So that's where it is right now. So I guess I should ask Hannah, where do you see the story going? What would you like to see happen next in the Raven Lord's adventures, or maybe in Fey Lynn's adventures, or all of them? Like, how do you see this progressing?
That's a good question. At this moment, I can't really say since I'm not the type of person who kind of like would focus on the world building. I focus more for character design and whatnot and characters' thoughts.
Right.
But definitely would be something that, with some more thought, it would probably be something that I would be able to throw in there. It's like, hey, what about this? Or how about this?
Yeah, you're a very character driven person, so I think so that leads me to my next question. Like I said, I haven't really come up with a name for Keith yet. Like that's just a stand-in name. But if you were to design the villain, it doesn't even have to be a guy villain. Like if you were to just design our villain, how would you do that? Like what would you want to approach here? What kind of person do you see being the Raven Lord's ultimate enemy?
Well, I would definitely leave the name Keith. I mean, what if that was the reason why he's a villain? It's because he was given the name Keith and he doesn't want anyone to know that's his name. So instead, he calls himself something a little bit more sinister.
I know we're going to have one fan of the audience named Keith who's going to go, hey!
Like, change that.
I'm sorry, all my fans named Keith in the audience. Nothing against you.
Like, change that name. Change it to Boris. How about that, Keith, you know?
Anyway, how would you design the villain?
So usually when it comes to villains, I actually think about what their personalities would be first before even designing them. So when I think of the villain, I would want someone who I would enjoy seeing come on screen, someone who I would enjoy nonstop. For instance, when it comes to like the show Made in Abyss, my absolute favorite character in there, well, favorite villain, honestly, would definitely be Bondrewd. That he was a necessary evil. Where a lot of the things he says is like, you know, you're evil, but I get why you're doing it. And then, of course, you have villains like Hades, who are just so fun. It's like you just want to join them. It's like, I get why you're so mad all the time. I get it.
For sure. I can kind of agree with that. Like for me, I'm struggling to think of like what motivates the villain. It's kind of a struggle for me because one thing I actually released a video just the other day, guys, where I talked about how you want to avoid self-insertion. And again, this is kind of my own lore creation, so I don't mind inserting myself a little bit into the Raven Lord, but I do want to make this kind of unique. I do want to build this into something bigger than it actually is and make something fun out of it. Now, I know the question that y'all are probably going to ask is, am I going to write this? Am I going to write a story around this? I don't know yet. Because like I said, I've left it kind of open for people to add what they want, but I might write like the origin, like how it got started, like how the Raven Lord came to own his castle. But am I going to make a long multi-chapter story like from the time the Raven Lord is born to the time he defeats the villain? Nah, I'm probably not going to do that. That would be a lot of wasted effort because I highly doubt that everyone cares that much about it. But I care about it. And now that we've gone over the whole thing, Hannah, now that we've gone over the whole thing, no spoilers, your honest thoughts. Do you enjoy this? And what do you enjoy about it?
I definitely do enjoy it. And the fact that you kind of leave it open for anyone to join, I think that's kind of really, that's honestly really cool. I would definitely like to see how it comes about, especially like if you include factions and whatnot. I know that was something that I had mentioned a while back. It's like, hey, you know, it'd be pretty cool if we had like different groups joined in and whatnot and getting to be able to design their emblems. But it's kind of like very similar to like in the story of Harry Potter. A lot of people don't really care much for the main story, but they're more fascinated with the world itself. And that's what brings in a lot of people. They want to place themselves in that world to see how what kind of adventures they would have.
Although, to be fair, I would love to see people at least invested in the Raven Lord somewhat. You know, the difference between Harry Potter and this is I could care less about Harry personally, but the Hogwarts is cool. But with the Raven Lord, I don't want people to go, oh, Raven Lord's kind of boring, but I like the world. I don't want to see that.
Yeah. I mean, it's also like with One Piece as well.
Right. Yeah, well, anyway, I think that about wraps it up. We've talked about all we really can with the lore, and if anything else gets added, we'll, of course, do a video talking about it or some kind of update on it. I may invite Hannah back to talk about it more if she draws any more pictures or we come up with any more ideas. And hopefully, I would like to get Jay on here to talk about his designs and what he wanted to do with the Raven lore. Also, like, just to get him to talk about his art in general, because I've had Hannah, I think you've been on at least 3 times now on this channel. Jay hasn't even gotten once, so I'd like to get him on at some point. And Lark, I'll need to get him to talk about his ideas for the Raven Lord lore. I'm surprised we've even done this video, to be honest, but I'm really glad we did. Any final thoughts, Hannah, before we wrap up?
My throat hurts.
Poor baby. In any case, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope that you guys have a great rest of your evening. Stay tuned for more videos to come and for more art and some more merchandise in the store, stuff like that. If you enjoyed the Raven Lord lore, please let us know in the comments down below what you like about it, what you enjoyed. If you didn't like it and think it needs some editing, I'm always open for constructive criticism. Hit me up in the comments, let me know what. If you haven't seen Hannah's work for herself, I will leave her Instagram and DeviantArt page in the description. And if you also want to see more of Jay's work, I will leave his Instagram in the description below so that you can check all of that out. Well, I think this is where we sign off. Thank you guys so much for watching and for joining us tonight, and I will see you in our next video. Take care.